everyone. गौतम किक कर दे सबको.
Okay. So, good evening to all the participants. Welcome to today's webinar that is Project to Product. I'm your host for today's session. My name is Samir Srivastav. So, guys, before starting the session, let us know each other well, and you can type in the comment section your name, your college name, or anything which you feel like. Let's know each other well before starting the session, and I think there will be a delay of 2 to 3 seconds on YouTube. So I'm waiting for you all to comment, and after that we can start the session. Mm, So if no one is there, so we can start the session. If no comments are there, so we will start the session soon. Till then, I'm waiting for you all to comment in the comment section. So So everyone who are watching this, tell us what you are expecting from this session actually. So we are waiting for your comments. Please comment in the comment section. Mm. So so tell us about your profile, like on which you work actually, and like what are the fields you like the most, like machine learning, web development, anything which you feel like. Like give it a thumbs up in the comment section. Anything which you feel like you can share with us. Will our mentors are there, our interns are there. Will answer all your queries, and we will start in around in 2 to 3 minutes if like no comments are there. Until then, we'll wait for your comments. So we have our first viewer, Devesh Bajaj from VIT. Hi Devesh, thanks for joining. Akshat Rawat is there. Hi Akshat Rawat. He's a Joule fellow from our Joule Labs. Hi Shantanu Srivastav. Good evening, sir. Shantanu here from DIT University. Hi Shantanu, how are you? Thanks for joining. We have Aryaman Shivam Jha. Hi Aryaman from DITU. Welcome to the webinar. We have Tejas Anand from DITU. Hi Tejas. We have Prakhar Kumar. He's commenting machine learning. Yeah, Prakhar. We'll answer your questions. Like we'll be having a 10-minute Q&A session at the end of the session. So any questions you have, any queries you have, our mentors will be there. They will answer all your queries. So you just put your questions in the comment section, and we'll answer it at the end of the session. Okay. Yeah, Akshay Tiwari, machine learning, sir. Yeah, we'll be covering all this in our session. Saloni Mathur. Hi Saloni from BIT University. Hi Saloni. Thanks for joining the session. So I think we are getting a good response from all our audience. Thank you guys for joining. Amber Kakkar from DIT University. Thank you so much for joining, Amber. And guys, comment fast. Otherwise, we'll start with the session, and I'll give you all a shout out. Right now, we have 30 seconds left, guys. I'm waiting for your comments. Till then, um, so guys, you all can comment like what you are actually expecting from this session. Okay. So we have Hardik Maheshwari from DITU. Hi Hardik, thanks for joining. Akshat Rawat. Um, Hi Akshat, I hope you are excited for the session. Mm. So, okay, we're coming back to the session. So, let me tell you what the session is actually gonna be today. Like, it will be actually about all the queries like an undergraduate has when he's pursuing his BTech degree. Like what are the tech skills, technologies, and other steps he should learn, or like he should learn or practice when he's in college to get a good job, or like how a product is being actually being developed in a company. So that's all. The entire session is actually based upon all these queries only. So watch the session till the end so that you get all your questions answered till the end. And if you have any doubts, hi Harsh Bansal from Delhi University. Okay, we have some students from Delhi University also. Hi Harsh, thanks for joining. Hi Sakshi Negi from DITU. Hi Sakshi, thanks for joining. So let us welcome our speakers for today's session, Mr. Amit Fulera sir from Full Stack Engineer at Dimagi.
Uh, Hey, hi Samir, how are you? Thanks for having me
I'm,
here. Really excited to
I'm
be
good, sir.
part of this webinar.
Thank you for joining, Amit sir. So our second speaker, Mr. Tanmay, DevOps Engineer at Smart Joules Private Limited.
Hi everyone, looking forward to having a great session today.
Hey,
Yes, sir,
Tanmay.
for sure we'll have a great session. Thank you for joining. So, and finally, our interns from Smart Joules Private Limited, Shivangi Gupta and Himanshi Kotnala.
Hello everyone, thanks for having me here.
Hello everyone, thanks for having me here. Hoping for a great interactive session. Hello Tanmay, hello Amit.
Hello, how are you?
Thank you
I'm
guys
fine.
for joining. So, over to you, Himanshu and Shivangi. Please start the session and take it forward. Hope we have a great session today. Hope all the participants enjoy the entire session thoroughly. Over to you, Himanshu and Shivangi. Please start the session. Thank you so much.
Hi Amit, hi Tanmay. So how are you?
Uh, we are good, enjoying our time in quarantine with our family and with my family. And Tanmay is with his friends, right?
Yeah, it's been great 2 months actually away from work and enjoying each other's company a lot. So yeah.
So, what keeps you busy these days? Like, I get a lot bored. So, what do you do to spend your time?
Uh, uh, I have made a perfect routine, like I'm religiously following it. So, and my weekdays are generally gone in the work, but weekends I try to explore something, or maybe help out my parents in some household chores. So yeah, that's how I'm spending my quarantine.
I've been also, I think I've been more productive in my work while being in the whole quarantine scene. Uh, and there's cooking. I've been cooking a lot. So learning new things, I guess.
Yeah,
I think
I think
that's
that's right. Yeah, we all have been, I think, the most productive in these lockdown days. In
Yeah.
fact, talking about being productive, my mind keeps popping up a number of questions in these quarantine days, and I'd like to start today's evening with the most obvious question of the evening. So, what exactly is the difference between a product and a project?
Okay, so I'd like to take that. What I feel like in terms of software, a project can be a hacky solution that just fulfills the use case of the implementer, right? Whereas a product has a wider audience and is built with a collaborative effort of the team. A project, I would say, is mostly for yourself, and a product is generally built for a wider audience or for the market, right? A project on the what I feel is project is the first step towards the product, and a project can come to an end. Like you say, I was working on this project and I finished it. But if you talk about product, it evolves continuously, right? An example to quote would be a face mash. This was what Facebook started out as, right? Then, as the Facebook, the product as of now keeps changing. You might find out some new emoticons on the on Facebook, or maybe you find out some user interface changes. So like it is continuously evolving till date, right? So this is what I believe is fine difference between a project and a product.
Well, Amit and Tanmay, you both have been working in IT industry for a while now. So can you share your stories in where you have converted a project to a product?
Yeah, while I started working in Smart Joules. Like we built a product called Joule. Just I'll give some context, like what actually it is. So it's a suite of IoT-based controllers and cloud-based software, which is actually solving the problem of energy wastage across commercial sectors. Uh, as per research by a CEO, Mr. Arjun P. Gupta, that there's a shortage of electricity in the world, and at the same time, 70% of the total produced electricity gets waste, and this is majorly because of the operational inefficiencies that exist in these facilities. So this gave him a push to start something out, in the sector, and he uh, started out with the retrofitting the old equipment with new, and getting the savings around 10% in these facilities. So the project was at St. Stephen's Hospital. The first pilot that we did was in St. Stephen's Hospital. Then we introduced technology to it. Like we started out with Joule, which was just a monitoring and control platform at that time. You can give commands from anywhere from world, and you can set the set points of different equipments, and you can analyze like how they are performing at different temperatures. So at that time, the savings from 10% grew to 30% just by introducing the technology aspect to this problem, right? So at that time, the pilot took us to 30% savings. Tanmay, would you like to share some light on what is the current state of of Joule as of now?
Yeah, so while diversifying into other industries like paper mill and retail stores, we realized that we needed to make the platform more generic. Every industry has their own needs, and we at that point needed to cater to all those needs. Uh, Also, while taking feedback from our stakeholders, we found out that simple monitor and control wasn't just enough. So yeah, we had to integrate more automation, and we came up with Joule recipe, a great feature we have for creating your own logic, which could be scheduled to take actions on behalf of the operators in case they were not present on the facilities. So now it has become even more relevant in times of COVID, that much less operators are available on the facilities itself. So the logics can be automated, and they just need to be monitored. They control the facilities themselves. So right now we are around in 20 facilities across 3 different industries right now. So yeah, that's where we are right now.
Well, it was really inspiring to know the journey of Joule, and in fact, kind of a mirror that how much energy we waste on a regular basis. I mean, 70% is surely a huge number.
Yeah.
Though
Yeah.
Joule is a great product, but as students, we generally work on comparatively maybe simpler projects. So, can you explain the process of converting a very simple idea, let's say maybe a calculator, into a project and then to a product?
Okay, so I'd say it's a great question. You want to build a product out of a calculator. Cool. So how I guess what comes to top of my mind is, you can just start out just by building the stuff, right? You just need to decide the technology that you want to build it with, and just start hacking. Let's say you are building a calculator for mobile. Then you can either start out with Java, Kotlin, or some JS-based framework. The point is, just to get started.
So, there are many frameworks and libraries for any kind of development in the market right now. Let's consider for web deploying a web server. We had Python, we had Node.js, we have Java, and almost every other language we are using supports web development or developing a web server or hosting a web server. So, and in let's take case of the calculator app only that we are discussing on. So even if we want to develop an Android app, we have Java, we have Kotlin, and then we have web-based frameworks like Flutter, Ionic. So like we have lots of options to develop on. So how to select the right stack, and what would be the best option? So how can we decide that?
It actually depends, right? What is the outcome that you're expecting out of that project? You want to learn something because it's sought out there in market, and you want to just learn it for the sake of fun, or you have an idea that you want to implement. It doesn't matter. You don't need to, I guess, learn something, and you just want to build it with something you already know. So, what is the outcome at the end that you are expecting? Now, if what I would suggest is, get in touch with your mentors and seniors and maybe teachers, and discuss the use case. Like, this is what I'm planning to build, and what would be a good good way to go about it, right? But I would say is, finish off your prototype without thinking too much about the framework or the stack. Right? Just go with one which you already know, or maybe just keep building stuff while you are learning something. So, yeah, Tanmay, would you like to add something to it?
Yeah, actually, I agree. So, learning first and then starting to build, it doesn't work. It doesn't really work every time. We go too deep into the whole learning process and lose interest at some point. So, I would also recommend to take on a problem and then start building and learning around it. So that you stay focused on the solution you are trying to provide, as well as you don't overdo the whole learning process. There's a vast sea of knowledge out there, but for solving a specific problem, you need specific amount of that knowledge. So yeah, start take up a project, and learn around it. Yeah.
Well, I surely agree with you, Tanmay, in this point, because I would like to share my experience in this too. While working on my problem statement of last semester as a Joules fellow, so I needed to develop an Android app, and I'm not an Android guy. I don't work on mobiles and app development, but I'm good at web development, and there are frameworks like Angular, React, and all those things. So what I did was I googled something, and I found out there's a framework called Ionic. So Ionic is a framework using which we can write code in Angular or React, whichever we prefer, and then we can just build that into an Android or iOS or a web-based platform. So what I did was I didn't just go through the whole documentation of the Ionic. What I did, I just Googled something, had a crash course, and just developed the basic app. And then whatever feature I needed, I used to Google it for the Ionic and used to develop it similarly. So I think that helps me better than going through a course and all those things, because this gives us a better understanding, because we are implementing those things practically.
Yeah, like I said that, what is your end goal in this? You wanted to just build the product. You had the knowledge of JavaScript with you. You just searched out from some frameworks that how you can apply that knowledge, and you started building. So it's all depend on the end goal that you are seeking, right?
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree with you guys. I mean, in fact, I also did a few courses on data analysis and Python before doing the fellowship. But actually, the amount of learning that I gained by actually developing the project was much more than any other course that I did before. So yeah, that is completely true, that instead of just learning and learning, we should actually try to implement things by our own. Well, talking about projects, the next question that pops in my mind is that you mentioned the words prototype and MVP. So what exactly do they mean, and what is the difference between the two?
What I feel is like a prototype is something that is used to validate your hypothesis. For example, you wanted to make a calculator, right? Maybe it's impossible to make a calculator on a mobile. So you want to try out something, just make it and validate that it can actually be done. So once the hypothesis is done, a prototype is generally a hacky solution that it's same as project. It's a hacky solution that you just want to test out. You are just doing something, pulling things from here and there, and just making sure that it works. So once it is made, it should be discarded and never be moved ahead, because it might cause you a lot of technical debt in future times. Whereas MVP is how should I put it? It's the most stripped down version of your product, right? Which can be actually released and or sold. So why like MVP? It is actually used to take feedback from early adopters, right? And maybe the stakeholders. You build out something, you build out your MVP, and you give it to your customers to use. So they might give you some suggestions or feedback, which you might take. It maybe they may be good or maybe bad, and they help. The suggestions, feedbacks actually help in shaping the direction of the product, where it will actually be going.
Well, that was some great insight about product development and the standards we should follow while releasing our first product or the minimal product. So the next question is to you, Tanmay, that you are a DevOps engineer. So can you suggest some solution if in case my friends want to collaborate in in the calculator app that we are building, let's say, and we would be working on two different features. Let's say I'm working on implementation of trigonometric functions, and my friend is working on logarithmic functions implementation. But let's say it is to be done in the same file. So, like, how can we tackle this situation efficiently and get the best out of it?
So, first of all, I would like to say that these are two very different functionalities. They are very different modules. So, try not to keep them in the same file. In terms of collaboration, this is where Git comes into the picture. So, Git helps in versioning every change you do. Either your collaborators change something, and Git keeps the track of all these changes. Let's say your calculator doesn't look very nice at the starting. You know a friend who can add the material design to it. Another friend can add functionalities like logarithms and trigonometric functions. So what you can do is you can put all your code into online Git repository, like from GitHub, and yeah, your friends other collaborators can just pull that code and start making new changes, adding more features to it. I would also say that all the new features should be added to separate branches for ease of access, and it also helps to declutter stuff. Otherwise, it becomes a problem while you're merging all those features into one main application. So there are some great articles from GitHub and Atlassian about the whole this Git flow. And there's also a guy, Vincent Dreesen, who wrote an article about the whole Git branching and merging like 10 years ago, and it's still very relevant in these times of software development. So I would really recommend all of you to go check them out. We have also added these into the handout we'll be sending you all. So yeah, go check that out.
So, like, GitHub is one of the most famous platform as an online Git provider. But can you suggest some other Git platforms which are officially available and free for students?
Yeah, so there are so many Git platforms. They provide services for free. Like apart from GitHub, there's Bitbucket, there's GitLab, and apart from just Git, they offer really great other features as well. Like for example, branch protection. So what you could do is every contributor can have their own separate feature branches, and only you as the owner get to decide whose code gets merged into the main application. And also it helps in a sense to keep backup in case you accidentally delete some code, or you spill coffee on your laptop and everything just goes away. So it acts as a backup. So whenever you get on a new system, or you are able to just restore it from the saved commit, as we call it, from the online Git repository. So yeah, and also there's a thing like people in industry always keep looking out for good coders and good code in general. So maybe they come across one of your codes posted on one of these online repositories, and they find it really good. They'll get in touch with you, so you may get famous overnight. So that's how the whole open source works. So always try to push your code on some Git service. Yeah.
So Tanmay, you just talked about collaboration, right? So suppose my calculator starts getting attraction and more friends want to contribute to it. But individually, I cannot keep going to all of my friends and explain the code individually to everyone. So is there a way out to help me?
Yeah, so of course, explaining the code to everyone individually is a big challenge. Also, something like addition would be a really simple functionality for you, but your contributors would like to know that if that addition functionality overloads for integers as well as real numbers. So that's why you should start writing documentation. And there are so many tools for almost every language out there, like JSDoc for JavaScript and PyDoc for Python. And these tools help you add documentation as part of your code itself in as comments. So you could add comments adjacent to your variables or function names, and to describe what kind of functionality those offer. And these tools are able to generate beautiful HTML pages or maybe Markdown, which you can host directly on your Git service. GitHub hosts it, even Bitbucket can host it. So yeah, whenever someone wants to contribute, they could just go through all that Markdown, that documentation that you have published, and get onboarded pretty easily. Amit, would you like to add to this?
Yeah, I guess like it's a typical problem that is faced in industry as well, right? By a new employee. If you hire someone, he has no context about what you are building, what your services are, how he has to contribute. So a proper documentation around these lines actually helps him to get onboarded faster. So that's like documentation, serves you in a long run. So you should invest some time in writing good documentation.
Okay, I think if we have discussed documentation, the next thing, which is the most important thing, and like all mentors in my interns always ask me to follow, was the language conventions and the best practices to code. So they always ask me to work on the language conventions, to study the language conventions before writing the original code. So what's your stand on following coding standards or language conventions?
So for starters, everyone has their own perspective and opinion about writing code. Yeah, linting is another important tool here. So it's the process of checking your code syntax against well thought out, already laid out best practices. So this is specifically done to shed the single person's notion about adopting these common practices. Many big companies like Airbnb, maybe Netflix, and even Google, they have already open sourced their best practices guidelines on the internet. So you can just integrate a common tool like ESLint or Pvt.Ltd with your code and start checking your code against all these set of rules already available to you. So in general, these helps you a lot in becoming a really good developer in the long run.
Okay, well, talking about standards and practices followed in companies, I think the only thing that comes to my mind is testing. Well, my mentor keeps telling me to test every piece of code that I write, validate my data before sending. So how to write testable codes and why does it matter so much?
Okay, so your mentor is definitely right. You should, write some tests. So what do you generally do, like when your mentor asks you to, test something?
Okay. Well, for me, testing is knowing how my code actually works, maybe under various situations like different types of inputs, different types of data, and making sure that the output or my analysis is correct under all circumstances. I mean, if I change a certain parameter, my code suddenly doesn't crash, maybe. So yeah.
Yeah, like this is why actually testing is required, and it is what this is why actually testing is for. So if I again, I'll come to the calculator example that you have asked. I'll make sure that at the end of this video, you'll go out and make a calculator with the best practices, So if I talk about that calculator itself, right, you don't want your users to report bugs to you, right? So a user is adding 2 and 2 and he's getting 8. So that doesn't make sense, right? So, this bugs basically reduce the confidence of your users on your platform. So you don't want that. And tests are a good way to prevent them, right? Just like example, I can give you, I can explain it by an example. Let's say in the same calculator app, you have a function called product, right? And what it generally does is takes in 2 parameters and multiply it and return it. So there's one more function, square, which uses this product function to return the square of the number. Now someone in your team thought that product is not a good name for that function. Let's change it to let's say multiply. That would suit, that would be much better. And he changed it. Now if there are no proper practices in place, so the code will definitely go to the main application that you have built, and it will break the functionality of square. The multiply will work fine, but square will break, right? So if there would have been proper tests in place, they would have stopped you in the commit itself. There are hooks, like generally unit tests are run when you're committing something, so they will stop you at the commit itself and will warn you that you are doing something which is breaking something in your application. You might need to either change it or check into the logs that what's actually breaking. So this is the essence of testing. It actually helps to make your application mature and reliable. And how to write testable code. So I can share some pointers that I have learned along the way. Something told by mentors and something I have read online and learned. So what you need to do is break your code base into smaller modules and make sure that the functions and the classes that you want to test are accessible. Generally, unit testing, if I talk about, involves calling a function from outside environment and making sure the output is consistent. So make sure that it is in smaller modules, and the functions that you want to test are can be exported and can be called outside. And there's a saying in software industry that keep the coupling low and cohesion high. What that generally means is coupling is basically dependency of a module on another, right? If a module is dependent into 20 other modules, then it is definitely hard to test. You need to mock something, and it becomes a little bit difficult to test that module. So what I would say is, you should make your modules Atmanirbhar, as it is nowadays. So and then comes the concept of cohesion. It means the code that is similar, the functionality that is similar should stay together in a similar class. So for example, if you have a class that is add, and you have some functions like adding two functions for adding 2 numbers, 3 numbers, 4 numbers, like that. So you can just overload that in the same class rather than creating another functions and another tables as X, Y, Z, functions as X, Y, Z, and give them a sensible name. The name the functionality, give them a name that indicates the functionality of that function or module. It helps you. Actually, by doing this, you're actually doing a favor for your future self or someone who comes in and tries to change or read your code. So make your code understandable to humans, right? These are some things that I would say would help you in writing testable code.
Okay. So I mean, as a student or as while using Instagram and all those things, we always come across a meme saying a developer and a tester could never be friends. So does this nemesis exist in industry too? Like, are testers some other guys, or they are developer too, or like, can you throw light on this topic?
It's not true. I haven't seen anything of such sort or heard anything like that from my colleagues or from someone who is working out there in industry. who a tester is will depend on organization to organization basis. Testing is done on different levels, as I mentioned. You can have unit tests, you can have integration tests, then there are end-to-end tests and functional tests. So it's always and it is like, if you are a developer and you are writing code, so it is expected out of you that you will at least write unit tests of that function, of that module that you are building, and you should also write integration tests. But code is not complete unless you have written the unit test for that module. So the testing, the unit testing and integration testing is generally done by the developer. But in some organization, there is a QA team, quality assurance team, or you can call it testing team, which actually works on validating the feature or the change that you have made. It actually didn't break the application, and it's actually doing what you are saying that it is doing. You say that if I have made a feature to that with which you can calculate logarithm of different values. So if you have sent it to QA and they say that I can pass into strings to it and it is breaking, or if I I put a number with 100 digits, so it is again breaking. So these, like, they test it with very detailed, they test it, and they make sure that no bug goes to the end user. So it's sort of filter that prevents some of these mistakes that we generally out of maybe sometimes we don't think of them, and they come out in production. So these things are stopped if you have a particular QA and testing team. So it depends on outload basis, and
before moving to next question, like few of the audience are asking questions related to the topic we are discussing. We'll have a Q&A session late at the end of the session. So please wait till then. We are noting down your questions, and we'll surely answer your queries after that. So, like, moving to the next question, like we have already discussed about the importance of collaboration, testing, and coding standards. So the next question that arises is, like, as a student, we work in projects, and sometimes it's a standalone project done by a single person, but sometimes it's a team project, and generally team is of 2 to 3 persons, and in some cases it's get extended to 5 to 8 people, I suppose. But I think that's the maximum number of teammates in a project team. But if we consider the industry, there are hundreds of people on the same project or a product. As a student, it gets very difficult for us to manage such a small team. But in industry with lot of employees working on the same product or a project, how does the industry manage all those things? What are the techniques and the tools they use to resolve all these collaboration issues?
You see, industries work very differently. There are a lot of stakes involved. Profits and revenue depend on what software they produce, what new features do they add, and how are they able to address customer feedback. So suppose we in the industry wanted to make that hip calculator we are talking about. So we would start out with brainstorming about what functionalities it should have. Will it have a scientific calculator functionality, or will it have a currency conversion feature? Should its design be material design, or should it be fluent design patterned by Microsoft? So after all that thinking is done, we have all the ideas on table. We start putting it into some kind of project management app like maybe Jira or Trello or Asana, or we even have GitHub projects now. So we start putting all those ideas into those project management tools. After that, we start adding more details, or as we say, user stories to all those ideas. So we make them grow and divide it into individual tasks. So one of the things one of the tools we use is the roadmap. So it's kind of a long-term vision of the whole product with short-term milestones, with well laid out timelines. So all this is done to make sure that the product doesn't deviate from the whole company's vision. There will be crisp timelines attached to it, so that every customer or developers know that when the currency conversion feature will be released, when we'll be able to see the history of operations that we did. So yeah, all those things make us make the whole company and the company vision streamlined. And yeah, that's how we work differently in the industry.
Okay, so like these are like agile and scrum are some hot words related to software development lifecycle these days. So can you please give us an insight about how they are implemented?
Yes, I think many of you would be familiar with the SDLC concepts, right? You may have heard of the waterfall model or the spiral model of development, right? So agile is also a similar kind of model, but it's different in a way that it allows much flexibility over other models. It guides us to work on smaller features, but well-established features, and it allows us to work on it iteratively. The intention is to make the process very flexible, so that in case of there's a planned change or a feature is not performing really well, the team doesn't end up wasting too much time on it and gets back on track really quickly. It also motivates to have smaller teams. You said that a company may have even hundreds of employees, right, working on the same feature, same product. But Agile suggests that you work in teams, smaller teams, like 4 to 5 people each. But the team should be self-sufficient. They should be able to independently produce that particular feature and ship it. So yeah, that's basically the whole agile process. It's nothing new, just a buzzword.
Well, talking of agile and scrum, does it mean that to start a project, we do not actually need to have the complete picture at the start? I mean, can I think of something very small and then eventually add and keep adding new features, and our final project can look like very differently?
Yeah, like definitely. I guess if I talk about some product, like I don't think there's a single product that had an idea of what it is going to look like in years down the line, right? As I said earlier, a product is ever evolving, right? For example, Joules, for example, I've never thought in the beginning that it will have something like Joules recipes, which can automatically control the entire facility, or it will be generic enough to be used in any industry. So we started out just as a monitoring and control platform, but over the time it grew. And I think the only thing that remains constant for a product is the problem that it is solving. Other than that, you may have some features, the features may be added, some may be removed over a period of time, some because of some technical technological advancements. You might bring out some more features that can add 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 a value to your product. But ultimately the problem that you're solving is really changed unless you pivot and to do something else. Otherwise the problem remains the same.
Well, this discussion surely gave us a lot of intuition about product development cycle, the practices that we should follow. But before all of these things, I think the first problem that students face is the lack of knowledge of opportunities. So, what are the different domains as a computer science student in which I can go?
I guess like the term, if you're talking about the roles, this term software developer is something like which encompasses many things like front end, back end, embedded systems, DevOps, computer vision, etc. Like these all comes under the category of software developer, and you can look out for any of these as per your interest. The roles are defined by the like the names actually are defined by the company, like as the lingo is different for everyone. So, and like if you're interested in playing around with data, then you can look out for a role, a data analyst role, or maybe a data scientist. And if you're interested in machine learning, go for ML engineer. And for the folks who are interested in designing, you can go in UI UX fields. And like if you're a people's person and you love technology also, so there are support roles also known as customer success managers as of now. So they might be a good fit for you, because they actually require you to interact with people on a daily basis and make sure that they understand the technology, and you are able to grasp what is the issue that they are facing, triage it, and if required, send in to the developers, otherwise resolve it on your own. So it is also a role that you can look out for. And we talked about testing, right? So there are testing and QA roles. If it interests you, you can go after that. So, and one thing that I would like to say is, the titles are very much company specific. Some might call you a software rock star. I don't know, like just for a software developer may be called software rock star in the company. So it totally depends. Just look out for the role that what is the niche that you're looking for, and look for the job description and apply.
Okay, so well, that was some good classification of how many job profiles does a software engineer can have or can apply to. So Amit, you have interviewed a lot of people. So how does working with open source project what do we say? So how does working with open source project affects a resume?
Okay, so we are getting there. Okay, cool. Definitely, like it's a delight to see some open source contributions on the resume, because like everything, if you're contributing to some good open source project, then whatever we talked about like in this past half an hour or 45 minutes is you might be actually knowing it, because I don't think that there's any good open source project that didn't follow these things. They properly plan, they have a timeline, and they work according to it. So it would be a less time, it would take less effort from the team to onboard that particular individual. So it is definitely a good thing to have on resume. And the second part that you get is you get to know the like-minded people and who help you, mentor you, and support you in your various phases in your career. So that is an added bonus that comes with it. So it's definitely good to have some open source contributions on your resume.
And I would like to add that there are frequent events like GSOC and Hacktoberfest. It's an annual event. So they actually celebrate your open source contribution. And even if you are able to complete some challenges, they offer you goodies and send you appreciation letters. So try to be a part of it whenever next time it happens. It's great fun. And it feels great to be a part of such a open community. Yeah.
Well, I surely agree with you on that point. Like, it helps us improving our coding standards and our naming conventions. Like one time I was contributing to SUSI project of FOSS Asia, and my reviewer didn't accepted my PR till the time I didn't follow the naming convention of Python. And like the mistake I made was like in Python we use a underscore case naming convention. Like if I want to name a function, let's say get data, it should be in all small and get underscore data. While in JavaScript and all, we use a camel casing in which we say get data with get, and D would be capital. So I did a camel casing and they rejected my PR and asked me to change that code and then again send that commit again. And after that, they accepted the PR. So I surely say like they made us focus to work on those things. So it surely improves us. So apart from that, Amit, your current organization, Dimagi, is also an open source organization. Can you share your project and what the goal organization have?
Firstly about Dimagi, so it's a social enterprise where actually we develop open and innovative technology to help underdeserved communities everywhere, right? So it means that designing mobile apps that help health workers in Afghanistan to better diagnose their patients, farmers in India to better predict their crop outcomes, or women in Senegal to start out their own businesses. So we have worked with wide range of partners from large organizations like the UN and some small grassroots groups. So we don't think ourselves as a software as a solution, but rather than as a tool to support existing programs. So we are a leader in ICT for development community and have a projects across 40 countries as of now. So what I am currently working on is a platform called ComCare HQ, which is basically a data collection and reporting platform. One use case where it is being used is to provide a computer-aided solution to the ICDS, which is Integrated Child Development Services. So it is basically a government program in India, which provides like food, preschool education, primary healthcare, immunization, and different services to children and children below 6 years of age and their mothers. You can see that the technology is actually being used to do some good to humankind, right? That is again you feel good when you are working towards something like that. That is actually making an impact.
Well, talking about domains and open sources, there is one more dilemma that we always face. I mean, which is better, a jack of all and a master of none, or having a specialization in one specific domain?
Okay, so I would say that you need to be master of one and jack of trade supporting that one. You must have a depth of knowledge or technology that you are actually passionate about and know enough about related technologies to get things done. I would say that the knowledge, if I talk about a shape, it should be in form of a cone, where the deepest part is your core strength, and the surrounding parts get the related technologies. Whereas on the top are something that you just explode because you want to do it, or maybe they were part of your college curriculum, you were forced to do it. So this is what I feel. You should be one should be having. Anything, Tanmay, that you heard?
Yeah. So I was just saying that when you're starting out, I would always recommend to explore as many varied fields as you can. So initially, you need to find out where you fit, where your passion lies. You should dedicate more time to look for it. As you progress in your career, you automatically start getting comfortable into one field, and you start developing skills around that particular field. But initially, you should let it come naturally to you. Don't restrict yourself early on. That would be my advice.
Well, that makes sense. Well, talking of dilemma and myths, one common thinking of today's student is that the more the number of certificate we have, the higher package we get. So, what's your say on this?
Okay, that is definitely not true. If you have 100 certificates saying that Java and you're not able to write a single program in it, so it's useless, right? They are just sheet of paper and say nothing. I think the certificates are just a proof that you have knowledge of a certain thing. So I would say that go after knowledge rather than the number of certificates. Learn and build things. Showcase your project. I guess it's more effective than the certifications. You might show me a project in Python that you have built and your certificate that I have done. This is certification in Python. So I would definitely go with the guy who had something to showcase. Actually, who had built something with what he have learned. Yeah, but there's one thing that it's good to have some certification that are actually recognized in the industry.
Yeah, some of those certificates are really well recognized, as well as very well thought of in the industry, like the CCNA certificate, networking certificate, or certificates by AWS, like Solution Architect certificate and DevOps certification. So another one in Linux is really popular, Red Hat certification for Linux. Those are really popular certificates, and having those really show that you have nailed some of the qualities required in that field. So yeah, those kind of certificate really matter. But hundreds of certificate of maybe participation, and those don't really matter much.
Well, talking about myths, I would like to ask most common question of every student maybe. Does CGPA matter?
It definitely does. It definitely does, but under some circumstances. There are, if you want to apply in some university to do masters, you will definitely have a check where they ask you what is your CGPA, and you may if you have a low CGPA, you might not even be allowed to apply for that specific university. Or it is used in your college placement, as some company put a bar to that we will only interview the candidates who have greater than the CGPA. Or like it might be like your goals are to apply for some government job, so there it might matter. But so if at a particular stage in your college you are not sure what you want to do, so I would say you should focus on your keeping a respected CGPA till the time you sort it out that I want to go in the specific direction. Other than that, if I talk specifically about software industry, I don't think anyone asks your marks, or how much did you get in your this semester. No one will ask you that. You have your profile, you have your projects to showcase, you have your experience. That's sufficient. No one has ever asked me in my personal experience that what was your CGPA in the college. So
Yeah,
that
so
is what I
even
would
for
say.
even for me, no one has asked me about my degree at Smart Joules in the 2 years I've been working here. So yeah, it really doesn't matter when it comes to software industry. Yeah.
So that was some insightful information from all of you guys, and I guess many of them would have got their answers from this session. So before moving to our final session, that is Q&A, I would like to ask one last question from both of you, sir. Like you both have been associated with Joules Labs program, which is an initiative by Smart Joules Pvt.Ltd from years. So I wanted to ask, what was your experience and what was the main idea behind starting the Joules Labs program in colleges?
So I would like to address that. So when we were in college, we used to work in communities. And we often face the issue that we have no one to guide us actually who is working in the industry. So so we started out this program to solve this specific problem. What we do is basically we select some students, and we have some engineers from Smart Joules who mentor these students to deliver some small projects with all the processes in place which are followed in the industry. So Tanmay is presently leading that program. So Tanmay, would you like to shed some light on how the program is doing?
Yeah, so right now we have completed through 5 semesters now, and it has been great. We have worked with around 20 to 25 Joules fellows and ambassadors throughout these semesters, and the results are great. Some of them are placed really at some really good places, and we also had some placements through the whole Joules Labs thing. And yeah, I think Himanshu, Shivangi, and Samir have been with us for the last 2 semesters. Yeah, so I would like to hear from them also about their experience in Joules Labs.
Well, yes, it has been a great experience here in Joules Lab. Working as a Joules fellow surely gave me more confidence that the code that I write can be actually maybe used in an industry. And being a student, that really boosts my confidence that, yeah, I'm doing some quality work. And yes, my quality as a coder surely improved. Like many things that I learned, including validating my work, modularization, and a lot of things that we already discussed. So yeah, it has been a really great experience.
And for me also, yeah, same here. I also had a great experience working in Joules Labs, and like an opportunity to expand my learnings and learning new things daily, like how actually a product is being developed, how actually a team works on a product to develop a product. And this is what I always wanted, and I hope in future like many people will come forward and contribute to make this community of problem solvers even bigger.
Well, as for my experience, I'll say the best thing I like about Joules Labs is the liberty to work on our own. Like we have mentors, but they just guide us. Rest is upon us, like how to get the direction of our project, how to select the right direction, right frameworks, and all those things of our project. This is the best thing, and I think this is the best way to learn. Because if someone will be constantly saying us like to do this, do this, do this, do this, then we don't learn, we don't explore or other things that could have been the possible solution. So that's the best thing I like about Joules Labs. Apart from that, Amit was my mentor in the last semester. At that time I was developing a Node.js based metering service. So I learned a lot from him, like how we can write a unit test. So I didn't knew even that unit test existed. I got to know about unit tests and how to do a proper documentation and all those things that industry follows. So yeah, it was a great experience for me.
Okay, so finally moving to our final section of the session, that is Q&A. So we have few questions lined up for our mentors and interns. Hope you all are ready. So question number one that we have is how to get started with machine learning using Python with some real world project. I think Shivangi is working as a data analyst, data science intern with Smart Joules. I think she can answer this question.
Well, yeah, I think that was the exact situation that I was facing a couple of months back. I was constantly in contact with buzzwords like machine learning, data analysis, all the libraries that we use. But my suggestion will be like you first read about all the algorithms that you can work upon, like what is exactly a regression model, what do you mean by classification problems, and then instead of doing courses, you just pick up a project that you like the most, maybe that has been implemented before or maybe that has not been implemented before. Let's say a very simple example of face recognition. There are a number of existing products of face recognition before that too. But if you actually want to learn, then what you can do is you can start building that project by your own. Like just go through all the libraries that you can use, go through all the mathematics that you can use, go through the neural network maths, that how can you do it, and if possible try to implement it without using libraries. So one thing in machine learning that I realized is machine learning with Python is really easy if you use libraries. I mean, it's just maybe 2 lines of code. But if you actually go into the pain of understanding the mathematics behind it, maybe you will take years to actually analyze things. But if you actually are able to, build a project that is obviously not that good quality, like when you will use a library, but even if it is close to that and you're not using a library, I think that will be much more valuable than writing or making 10 projects using libraries. So yeah, that's all I would like to say, that start with any real world problem, maybe face recognition, sentiment analysis, any classification problem, and try to do it without using libraries. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thank you, Shivangi. Like many of them were asking so many questions related to machine learning in the comment section also. And so guys, this is for all the viewers. You all can ask questions in the comment section. We are currently in a Q&A session. So our second question is how to select the perfect combination of front-end framework with backend and database, and at the end deploy platform that is cloud from cloud. This is asked from Jatin Chaudhary.
Okay, so I would like to take that. So the thing is, it's a myth that such a perfect combination exists. Every use case has a different perfect combination. So the whole point here is to be comfortable in what you are using. So for some projects, I'm really familiar with Node.js right now. So I generally use Node.js frameworks for backend and for frontend. So the thing is, I keep on experimenting. I still do, even though I have some personal preferences now. But I still keep on experimenting on the frameworks. I have For static front ends, I have used Angular, I have used React. I'm yet to use Vue.js or other frameworks, but they're pretty much similar. So some are lightweight, some are easy to learn, but they all have a perfect use case you can think of. Another aspect, the backend part, is yeah. So Express is one of the frameworks, really popular. You can find so many different add-ons for Express, right? So Express may be a good thing to start with. But then there's Fastify. Fastify is another very new framework. It boasts of being really fast. So you could also try that when you get the first chance. So for front end and back end, keep on experimenting. Maybe you like Python. You don't want to get into Node.js at all. You have Flask. You even have Django, which has proven a lot of worth in the past years. Maybe you are a really old school guy and you like the strictness offered by Java. So even Spring and Spring Boot, all those frameworks, they also will help you a lot. They'll perform similar. So it depends on the use case. You have to experiment. For databases, I would say that for all the kinds of metadata, like maybe user information. So whatever you don't have to keep time series or really going kind of data, then you should try to use a NoSQL database. It's much easier to store meta information and information that may change in structure. Some information may be present into one object but not in others. So it becomes easier to store in a NoSQL kind of database. We have maybe Mongo. Mongo is a really popular one. We also have a cloud-based Dynamo. So you can look into that. For the really good structured database and for kind of machine learning purposes, maybe. So I would recommend you going with a SQL database so that it becomes aggregation and querying becomes much easier that way. Some of them like Hadoop, etc., are also able to handle huge and really huge amount of data. So I would recommend SQL-based solutions for that. So I guess that solves your query, Jatin. Yeah.
I would like to add some points to it. In terms of if you talk about in terms of database, it's always like use case specific. You might need to read about why that database was actually designed. So that will give you a great insight on what are the use cases, what are the problems that this database is actually trying to solve. In industry, Postgres is one of the databases that is most like it's more widely used. Like I have. If I talk about 100 companies that I know out of, and they're using, let's say, SQL-based, database for some of their tasks, out of that, 70% are using Postgres. So Postgres is really a popular one. And in the beginning, just read about this use case, and you will start out really small. Then, you might need to have 2 different databases for different things. So things will slowly and gradually grow out when your product or when you start to get traction and have the number of more users. So in the beginning, just having a little bit of intuition, okay, this is something that I want to do, and the use case is generally better for these kinds of databases. So reading about the databases and why they were designed will really help you.
Well, I would also like to add, the question was asked related to backend too. So for those who are not into backend, like they are the front end guy and all those things, so I would like to suggest there is some new terminology known as headless CMS these days. So the best thing about these things is you just they don't have any front end attached like the older ones like WordPress and Wix and all those things, but they just share us a GraphQL based or a REST based endpoint to which we can just hit and just get the data in the JSON format, and we can use it in our customized front end. Like I was recently developing my own portfolio, and the few of the best I found out one was Strapi API, which is based on Node.js and highly customizable and open source. And second is the Squidix. And best thing about the Squidix I like is they give us a deployment platform. So I don't even need to think about how to deploy, how to manage database, and how to manage file upload and all those things. So it manage all those things by itself. So one can try headless CMS too.
I would like to. There's a question by Jay Patel. Should we prefer open source with respect to security as big concern? So, if you're talking about security, like and databases, the one thing that is to keeping in mind is that there are actually security guys who are working, who are actually contributing to the code base in with respect to security as well. And like if you are so much obnoxious about using that open source tool, so you can look out for a managed solution who are actually patching these vulnerabilities as they come up. For example, if I talk about Amazon, AWS specifically, they manage services, and they have, like, sometimes what they do is they have the patches. They take the open source product and add some ways of filtering and security to it, and provide you as a managed solution. So if you are like so much obnoxious about using an open source project, you can go with a managed solution, which is providing you SLA for the security. SLA for that security aspect of the product. But I don't think like it is a huge it's a huge concern, because there are guys who are working in the security, and if something comes up, they are the first ones to fix it.
Okay, so we are getting too many questions here. So next question is from Shantanu Srivastava. He's from DIT. What one should go for in second year, internships or projects?
I think I would like to take that.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So this was the dilemma that I faced too last year. Like when I was in second year, and I had an option to do a training and a subsequent project in the training and internship. So I think internship is way much better than doing project on your own, because in internship also you will get a project and you need to complete that project during that internship tenure to get your internship certificate and all. So, but the additional thing you learn is the industrial exposure you will get in internship, which you won't be getting in your own standalone project. So I think you should try for internship.
Yeah, I was also going to say the same thing.
We'll take a couple of more questions. So we have our next question from Tushar Fulera. Among Python, Java, and C++, which language should be recommended for programming?
Well,
You can start out with
that.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So actually, working in C++, Java, and Python, if you actually want to get your concepts clear, I would suggest you go with either C++ or Java, because using Python is good for projects, but once you have a habit of coding in Python, maybe you'll have a lot of problem in coding in other languages. And if you even want to do competitive coding, maybe in Python, you see there are a lot of inbuilt functions. So once you are in a habit of just calling those functions, you won't be able to easily understand the algorithm and work on that. And moreover, working in Python is good, but it kinds of is very different from Java and C++. So talking about myself, I've been working in Python since the last 1 year, and now when I even write in C++, I make a lot of mistakes. I never put semicolons, I never put brackets. So and in competitive coding, I cannot use Python. Python is not allowed everywhere. So if you want to get your concepts clear, use C++ and Java. And for making projects or something, you can use anyone that you want.
Okay. So
I would like to just add, like, I have some different, somewhat different views on this topic. I would say that you can start out with any of the language. If given choice, you can definitely prioritize Java or C++ over Python. But if you're like already doing Python, I wouldn't suggest you to go back to C++, because in present time, there's nothing that you can do with a language and you can't do with other language. So every platform supports each of these languages, and if you want to if you want to build something, I would say that Python is the easiest thing. Like it's really easy to start out. The learning curve of Python is really low, so if you are already there, you can just go out with the language itself.
Okay, so next question is from Shubhankar Kotnala. Do we really need to use frameworks for a not big project just because they make the development easy, or should we consider to make the app to take less memory by dropping the framework?
I think like the frameworks should not be the default go-to for any project, right? If you are actually building something of that scale, then it makes sense. If I talk about Angular, like it's a very opinionated framework. So it has a certain way. It has defined certain ways in which you will do things. But if you are making maybe your simple website to host your thing, you don't need to make it in Angular. You can just try out with raw JavaScript. And as of now, JavaScript like supports many of the functions that for which libraries were used in the past. For example, Lodash and stuff. So JavaScript is maturing. It is taking good parts from the frameworks that are being heavily used in the industry, and these are added to the language. So you are good to go with the language itself, and there's no need to go for a framework. You can learn it anytime if that sort of requirement comes. If you are good with JS, you can learn these frameworks like in relatively low time.
Yeah, and if you're really comfortable with the language itself, and you feel that it's adding a lot of overhead to the whole application, then of course you drop the framework. If raw performance is all you want, and you are comfortable with it, it is not making much of a difference, then of course go with the raw language. And most of the language now have really good capabilities. Even not even JavaScript, just HTML is capable of rendering your whole videos, like streaming your whole videos at this point of time. So yeah, if raw performance is what you need, then yeah, go for it.
I can see a question by Sanjay, that a version of language to use latest or what. So I would say that there's something called LTS, long-term support. So when you are using something like on development, everything is fine, right? But on if you're building something and planning to move it to production, so you should look out for the LTS versions. You can read more about the LTS in the website. What it's actually long-term support, in which the language is provided with patches and everything till a specific time period.
Okay, so we have one question from Jay Patel. In DevOps, there are a lot of tools available which is open source, but in the end, it makes this difficult to take decision which to use.
DevOps is really a requirement-based field, right? So the thing is, surely there are hundreds of tools available for deploying your whole software. Like there's Jenkins, the old Jenkins, and when you go to cloud providers, you have Azure DevOps, you have code pipelines in AWS. Even GitHub also has now kind of automations that you can do with GitHub Actions. So yeah, GitHub Actions. So it depends on where you are working. So before you're starting out, before actually joining a company or any kind of internship, you should explore everything. You should try to do as many deployments and as many deployment tools as you can. But the thing is, industries, when you go into an industry, they become opinionated. So if they started with Jenkins, they'll continue using Jenkins until there's a really good push to switch to another tool or another provider. So I would also like to tell you an example. So we early on we used AWS code pipelines for deploying our backend and front end at Smart Joules. But recently we saw that with our GitHub subscription, they also started offering GitHub Actions in beta. So we tried all that, and we found out that that serves our purpose as well as good as the AWS code pipeline did. So we now are deploying most of our code with GitHub Actions, and you should know it all, but choosing it is what comes to you when you get into the industry. Then you get actual hands-on one-to-one client experience, what kind of solution they want. Based on that, you decide. Yeah.
Okay, so we have our next question from Shantanu Srivastav. How one should prepare for internships and when should we apply for it?
I can take it.
Yeah.
So actually, you can start preparing for internships by working on projects. Like you start learning something that you like. First, explore all the fields. Then you choose the field you actually liked a lot. Then prepare a project and be sure that you are very confident of the thing that you build. I mean, there are a lot of projects already built, right? So even if you do a Coursera course, at the end you will, in some courses, you will do a project. So I'm not talking such projects. I'm talking projects where you were involved for a maybe more technically, and you thought of that project. You did it from the scratch, and your confidence should be like when the interviewer asks you about that project, you can talk about that project for maybe hours without hesitation. So that confidence will only come if you have actually done that thing. So you know that experience speaks. So you can start preparing for internships by making projects of your own and learning new things, and you can apply for it whenever you feel ready. That's it. And one more thing that I would like to add, that mostly in internships, what I see that the person sitting there does not expect too much from you. I mean, they also understand that we are students. So even if you know something, but you know that and you have done it by your own, I think that works. I mean, that's enough for applying for an internship.
Okay, so we have our next question, that how to start learning cloud computing.
Himanshu was saying something. Himanshu, would you like?
Yes, Himanshu.
You're not audible. Still not. So we can move to next question. I guess there's some technical
But I think,
problems.
Amit, would you like to take that? The cloud computing.
Okay. So basically, what actually is cloud computing? It's someone else's computer and you're working on it, right? So first of all, just to get started, you need to have good understanding of, I would say, Linux first, because you'll be working, you will be SSHing on the servers and you'll be doing stuff. Now, there are some, if I talk about, the cloud native world, like cloud computing is something just a concept where, you are using someone else's computer to do stuff. Whereas if the thing that is going nowadays is going cloud native, in which like you choose the technologies that are being provided by your cloud service provider. So what you generally do is you take and manage service, use the APIs provided by this provided by your cloud service providers, and get to it. So what I would say is learn about the Linux, like the basics on how to work, maybe have a VM or just install Ubuntu on your system and get familiar with command line, right? That would be the first step. Then when you have a good idea of the commands and all this stuff, then you can go on AWS. They provide like 1 year free subscription. Then SSH onto a server and maybe set up your own Apache server or Nginx server or something like that. So that will give you a great understanding on how actually the web works and how actually things come into picture. Now, once you have that understanding, you can look into more deeper concepts like what are the VPNs and what are the security groups in different things. Then you can go to the managed services and look after the APIs to try them out. So I guess that would be sufficient. Once you have that much idea, then you will be able to figure out path on your own.
Okay, so finally taking couple of questions, and after that we'll move to the end of the session. For the next two questions are lined up for you, Amit sir, and the first question is: tell us about your experience on leading a team at such a young age.
My experience. So I don't think the guys that I worked with required some sort of leading. They were all self-motivated, and they were driven enough that if I would not have been there, they would have taken the product in the same direction that it is going. So if I would like to answer that, the things that I actually experienced was designing, thinking about the future of the product, and thinking about what each of the decisions that I take is going to affect in longer term, and having the having the accountability for your actions. I might I might have tried something that I want to do, but that might have some negative impressions on the project. So that was one thing that I started considering, thinking about the stakeholders, like what actually the business needs out of that product. So getting that understanding in college, what we have idea is that, okay, so we are developers, we'll make everything and give it to the people who need it. But actually, it's the business which drives the product, not the product that drives the business, right? So you understanding that difference was a big thing, and then working out with different people, having different motivations. So that was an interesting thing. There were some things that happened in between. There were some tough decisions that I had to take in some last year or something. So it was a mixed experience. Sometimes I was overwhelmed by the work. You are doing your work on you are yourself doing your technical work. Then apart from that, you are also responsible for other things. So that sort of gave me a good idea. That sort of motivated me to manage my time better, and similarly, it was a great experience, I would say.
Okay, so last question for you only, Amit sir. Amit, how do you manage to explain your development work with non-technical manager or boss?
That was a big problem. So we had some issues in the beginning, getting on the sync with the manager, with the non-technical manager that we had. For sometimes what happens is understanding, empathizing with the other person is something that we miss. I, as a developer, did not understand why actually the other person is saying it. He might be saying that, okay, this is the feature I need it by tomorrow, but which is practically impossible, right? So the thing is, you need to have boundaries and you should learn to say no. That is the thing that I learned. If you will when you are starting out in your career, you are bound to agree with everything. Someone will say you, okay, so this is the stuff I need in 1 hour, so which is practically impossible. So you must say no and have a genuine reason. You should be able to explain that these are the things that I need to do in order to reach to that position. So this is why I need I am unable to do what you are asking me to do. And then the second thing that is slow, give perfect examples. If you will be blabbering in between, and you'll not you try to make concrete statements rather than some vague ones. कि ये नहीं हो पाएगा. So this is not acceptable. With a proper reason, this is not possible because I need to study. Maybe I need to research about it first, and which will take this amount of time, and then maybe I'll implement which exactly I'm not sure of it will work or not. That might go on in both cases. So that might take some time. So giving genuine explanations and empathizing with your manager. This really helps. I guess if you are doing it slowly and gradually, your manager will try to understand, will get to understand what actually you are saying. And it's always good to have some senior on your team, who can explain things to the manager. It always works. Or you auto connect who are actually in the industry for a long amount of time. You can ask your manager to verify these things from these from these people who are in the industry.
So I'm taking two last questions from this session. These are really interesting questions. So number one is, in projects having constraints or formal way to implement it or automating things, if we having different framework and languages in single project, what are your views about that?
I guess so. Projects having different frameworks in the same project. I guess this you'll have to write some custom scripts, I guess, for having being able to incorporate both of the frameworks. Maybe you have certain plugins. So I know for a fact that Jenkins has some framework-based plugins. But if you have multiple frameworks in the same project, you'll have to write some custom scripts to accommodate for the other framework as well. Try to incorporate as many pre-existing things in the tool you are using, and try to make as less custom scripting as possible. But yeah, I think this is kind of a use case where you have to you're bound, you're constrained because of variations. So you'll have to add some custom scripting into it. So for an example, GitHub Actions are there are because they're new, so they have a lot less plugins for different frameworks and different deployment strategies. So most of the times you'll end up writing custom code for the whole GitHub action. But yeah, that's part of the job, I guess. So DevOps evolved from the whole system of sysadmin kind of role, right? So it's already expected. It's expected less, but it's still expected from you that you know some bash scripting or things like that.
I would like to say that generally in all the build systems, the configuration files is there in the project itself, right? So you can have some stages in which you are building for different frameworks, and properly categorize them, and maybe create the artifacts somewhere, and then maybe sync them together. I don't know what exactly you're doing, but this might be a way to go.
I think we have some connection issue.
Do we have any more questions?
I think we should take one more. I saw somewhere like someone asked, do I need to look at the users before jumping into the technology? So Amit, would you like to take that?
Let me read. Do I need to look at the users before jumping to a technology? I'm not sure like what is he trying, Yoshi is trying to ask.
I think it's about the before starting out the whole product. So what I understand is that should one do user research before actually starting to implement the product or implement the MVP as we discussed earlier. So I guess this is about the importance of user research.
I think these are two different parts, right? User survey is something different. Choosing a technology is something different. So I don't see is there overlap between the two. Like but yeah, definitely you should have your user service before you are building a new feature or something. Technology, on the other hand, is more of a use case specific, right? What is it that you are trying to implement, and what is the use case that you're trying to build, and what are the tools that are available, and what should be the best one as per my project and as per my need, what would the best for it. So I guess like there's no overlap that I could see.
I think in some use cases that may be possible that a particular technology would not be able to uh, complete all those requirements. So maybe there may be requirement of using a certain specific technology. Like I have seen many a times in the whole data analysis, data science thing, that normal simple data DBMS system is not able to accommodate for a huge data. And I've also seen in some cases databases failing to accommodate high throughput capabilities.
So again, that is something use case specific, right? Not
yeah,
user
exactly.
specific.
That is very use case specific. So yeah, yes.
Okay. So that's all for today's session. Thank you all for joining the session. Hope you all enjoyed it, and I think everyone would have got their queries answered. And I hope we will have more such great sessions ahead. Thanks to all the lovely audience for joining. Thank you, Amit, Tanmay, Shivangi, and Himanshu.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We enjoyed it as well. We loved it.
Nice
Yes,
talking
sir.
to you all. Yeah. Thank you for the awesome questions. I hope like we answered them. Like we try to do it to the best of our knowledge.
Yes, if anyone is having any further queries, they can connect with our mentors or our interns on LinkedIn, or they can send an email to our mentors, right? So I would like to thank our organizers, Script Foundation, IEEE Student Branch, DITU, and Smart Joules Private Limited, and our volunteers who are there backstage, Dipanshu, Gautam, Akarshit, Riya, Lavan, and Nishchay and Ankit, who are there backstage helping us throughout this session. Thank you guys for your support. Goodbye, everyone. Take care and have a great career ahead.
Yeah, stay safe. Stay indoors.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Safe.
Bye.